All right, I took the little arrangement out of there. This is just a loose piece of heat shrink on this cable, which is the 40 or probably 50 amp circuit. It wound up being 50 amp because of the subwoofer and the amplifier. But this is going to roll into a bridge, a connector that'll allow me to connect a bunch of other things together. But I pulled the wiring back and I built the panel today. I finished the panel today, powder coated it black, and kind of got it mocked up. This is screwed in because I did some welding. I welded the tab on to this panel. Yeah. Well, you can see it right there. I'm not going to pull it off because it doesn't need to ever come off again. And then I cut up the piece that I made. This was the piece that was in there, because this is just 18 gauge over the top. I got it spotted to the hat channel because I need the space, so I'm using the 1-inch tube. So I ran a hat channel. I'll show you in a moment here. So the Pioneer mount, the amp mounts to right there. Riv nuts. I relieved the 18 gauge just so the amp would go square, fit in flat and square. I don't want any twist on it. The sub goes into the tray. I made up these two bands, then foam the inside. They will go down 1/4 inch, clamp on, and hold the sub in place. The battery is sitting in this area. There's enough room for the battery cover to come off. And then, of course, these will wind up being my connections. Be nice if I could take the cover off of this and flip it over, because there's my power, but I'll have to route it up through here. This is going to be, I'm going to spider ground. These are all 1/4 inch mounted to the frame on the inside, which is welded to the chassis or body, so on and so forth. But I think I'm going to take some material off here and spider washer them when I anchor them in, so that I have a good solid positive ground. I got room, not a lot. I didn't want to move the amp over because I'm imagining more is going to be on here down the road, but that gives me space for getting other things done. I'm leaving it open here and here. Obviously for the sub, I want to be able to get as much air around the sub and around the amp as I possibly can. So that is, there's probably about 3 inches on either side left, to go. It goes past the wheel well. So, with the interior panel in, you won't see that cavity behind there, but I mean, the body shape is right out here. But that's it. Talk about tight packaging, that's it. That's all I can fit in there. If I went with the 10-inch, my seat wouldn't go all the way back because it's deeper. The width would have, I'm all the way to the end on this side, all the way to the end. I'm sticking out into that 3-inch area with those ears. So that's as much as I can get in the back of the 30. So, and I can't get anything else under the dash. I mean, other than a few wires, the speaker wires and that, but I can't get components in there, and there's nowhere else to put them. So that's where we're at. Coming along. I'll keep you along for the ride here. Power wire. Right and left front speakers, and that black one is the bass frequency adjustment. So, or offset. So that's good news. In the back then, try and get this light positioned. We have our system fully wired. It runs up. It's in that black convoluted tubing running up the channel for both sides. Comes down, runs across. Grabs the low side of the amp here. Or the high side, power and speaker wires. Okay. Tapped into a ground for both the amp and the amp and the subwoofer, powered subwoofer. My cables come in. I split them. I'm using an auxiliary cable. Sorry about that. I tripped over a broom. Or I'm splitting the low-level signal for the sub and the amplifier. So I turn the sub output or the low frequency stuff down on this guy and run off of that guy. Okay, now that one has an audio startup. When it receives an audio signal through the speaker wires on the low side, it should power. This one I'm driving off of an input wire, this green wire right here. It's running all the way up to the front for ignition on. If my signal isn't strong enough to turn on the amp, then I'll just bridge or split, tie off of that same wire, fire up the amp with the ignition. Everything's wired over to the, okay, so this is a 50 amp. I did replace a fuse with the 50. And my two positives are on the bottom bridge there. This has a cover that goes on it, a red cover that goes on it. And I'm grabbing direct off the battery. So my cable length is, not even, maybe 3 feet, I suppose. Maybe a touch more than 3 feet. Grounds are 18, 20 inches. Well, for the amp, they're not even a foot. So, that's all the power lines on here are 6 gauge. Everything's 6. It's 4 to that bus bar at 50. Or no, it's 6. That's 6. Everything's 6 because it's the same wire. It's the same wire. So I'm good for 50 amps, but if I need to go up on that breaker, then I would have to size up that cable. But it should be able to handle it. I added the ampacity for both of those two. Yes, the doors are allegedly a 30 amp circuit. You saw when I popped them that 10 amps wasn't enough. But at the same time, if I was booming at full volume and I was outside the car and I came to inside the car and popped the door, I might blow a speaker. So that's that chassis. You can see evidence of a few spot welds. I think I might have already mentioned that. So there's a little deformation, but big deal. Hopefully it's covered with other mounted items. But it's in. I'm very happy with it. It's amazing to go through all this work. And, it's all got to come out just to get it to fit in there. One other thing that I was thinking about is I'm using a temporary ground cable just to a bolt there. The bolt's loose, just for checking systems. But the actual negative battery cable goes down into the under the car, through a grommet under the car, and bolts to the chassis, the cross member that holds the coilovers. So I'm going to do a body to chassis ground wire to assure that in the back, In the front, I've got one for the engine. You know, there is a, I don't even know where it's at. But there's a body to chassis ground up here, and an engine to chassis ground back there because I'm running my battery to the chassis. But I think I'm going to put one back here just for assurance that that everything is copacetic. I do have bite washers, you know, and this is powder coating though, and powder coating is harder than heck to get through. So you can see the mounting on the subwoofer, the two bands, the riv nuts holding the amp, and everything bolted in to the channel. It sits back there. The seat does miss it. There's maybe an inch behind the seat. This one I can flip up, but that one's got a bunch of stuff on it. Or more, a little more than an inch. Probably a couple inches. At the most 3. And so now I start to work on the package tray, and we'll hold the 6x9s. So phase 2, 300 of the interior. Anyway, going along good. Hey guys, so I clamped these two ends. You can see they're at a bit of an angle. I clamped these two ends to the inside of the car, carefully cut and welded them onto this piece of tubing. Okay, and he goes. Am I doing it right? Yeah. Let's see here. He's gonna go into there, swing down. I got to get both sides in, and it did work. Oh, that's because I have to do it this way. Can't get around that. You see that hole there? Yeah, you see that riv nut, I guess is what I should call it there. And he's going to take a little bit of tapping. No, it's going to take a little bit of finesse. Okay, there we go. So that'll bolt in there, and that is the beginning of the package tray. So pull the seat up. He'll set about an inch below the seat, and now the task is this is all going to be sheet metal, but I'm going to form around here, bend up this end, and follow around the body there where the interior panels will bolt up. And then we'll have the whole bead roll around for the 6x9. Probably put a couple of beads in here that are going down, you know, the bead down. So I have a nice beefy flat panel. I'll do it all out of 18 gauge. And then we can mount the 6x9s. But that panel then we'll use self-tappers with some relatively flush heads so that it'll be hidden by the foam. I still got to build that window trim piece for the back, but I'm cognizant of that. So I'll probably, I don't know if I'm going to go halfway up or all the way up and come over the top, but you know, 18 gauge is only 50 thou, and the foam that goes in there will cover it. So that's what I'm working on, is the package tray up here, and we'll keep plugging away at that, and I'll try to take you through some action shots here as I go. So, all right. So now that we've gotten all this stuff in and the bar in for the package tray, it's a bolt-in bar, and I would like the opportunity to be able to remove the package tray. I'd like the package tray to weld to that bar and fasten to the back. Okay, so I took some made a cardboard pattern, I guess. Took some I'm gonna back, you can see. Took some 18 gauge, got some more sheets, and scribed in my bend lines, my center line. In this case, I had in locating the speakers, I wanted them centered this way, but you know, I did this distance wouldn't be consistent all the way around. I wanted them closer toward each other rather than too terribly far apart, but they are going to be relatively tucked into the corners. And the reason for that is, again, that amp is right down there. It's 1 inch above the floor. I could split that difference, get it to about a half of an inch above the floor. It's higher because it's tilted on the end, and I apologize for the light, but I don't have anything plugged in at the moment. We'll see that later. But the wiring for the amp comes out the top, and so I wanted to stay on this side of that wiring. The distance from this surface to the top of here is 3.5 inches. The 6x9 that's going in there, distance from the mounting surface to the magnet is 3 inches. So I don't want to interfere with the wires, so I wanted to move it over as far this way as I can. So I identified the side of the magnet as this line here, and of course I could have the wiring connections on the outside side so I don't have any potential or noise, radio frequency noise issues on the 6x9, and of course the other one is a mirror image. So now for the outside radiuses, this is a 2-inch lip. That lip will go up to the bottom of the window sill, or the top of the window sill. I guess it'll be flush with that edge. Drops down 2 inches and comes out to this. I made these 2 pieces, and I will shrink the inside. This is already a half of an inch short on this side, so I need to come in and continue that around. This is just the profile from the cardboard template that is right there. But this is just that cutout. It needs, again, to be dropped down a half of an inch and then connected to this. The reason why this is a half an inch shorter than this side and on this side is because that's 48 inches. It's the width of the sheet. It's slightly more than 48 inches, but it's the width of the raw sheet. Now I have a 5x10, pardon me, a 4x10 sheet that was cut in half, so I do have a 5-foot section, and I can just get, I can't get 5 feet in, I can get 50 inches into my shear, and I like perfectly straight cuts, but that would have been a waste. So I opted to, I would have just been cutting pieces to have smaller and smaller and smaller pieces. I like to keep my raw materials in as large a form as possible. Anyway, so then I concocted, I need that half of an inch. Well, why don't I just shrink that radius in? It's the easiest method to control a consistent radius, and then not lay it over the top of this with it lined up and notch it in. Form the radius on the inside curve, form it into this curve, and make 2 of them, and then lay them on, and I'll just TIG weld that surface in and that surface in. The front, it looks like the speaker in this case is more distance here than here. In fact, this line needs to go right there in the middle, another inch up. Although I laid my cardboard template in and pulled it out several times, it's been some time since I made the cardboard template and this, and I didn't realize that I allowed for the 1-inch overhang on the template, and I used the template and added 1 inch on the material. So it's not a big deal. I mean, I can shear this off and go back and remark it. So anyway, so that's where I'm at. Right now I'm gonna take and bead roll some strength into this thing and cut out the speaker holes. So. Excuse me. Okay. So I started by, of course, using the cutoff wheel to take out the pattern, and I stayed on the inside of my magic marker, right? So, you know, like anything else, get yourself a pattern, locate the pattern, draw the pattern on, and of course I trimmed the edges that were the speaker, you know, the recess in the speaker, or the side in the speaker that would fit. And then I stayed as close as I can to those magic marker lines. I use a regular, you know, Sharpie style magic marker because it leaves about 1/8 of an inch wide track all the way around it. And then I just try to stay in the track while I'm cutting it out with a cutoff wheel. In this case, it worked out pretty good. I stayed in the track. So knowing that the outside edge of the track is the diameter, is the etch that I'm looking for. So then I just laid that over each side again and marked again. Got it lined up. In this case, I used this edge and lined it up and then taped it out. I want to migrate that way. I don't want to migrate towards the magnet on this side. And then, oops, oh shit. Anyway, and then just progressively work toward that line until you get a fit. And so in this case, and keep your speakers away from the environment. There, now we're in. And these frickin' videos, you know, you got two hands and no assistance, and oops, had my finger bumped the video. Anyway, I got the beans stuck to the weenies there. But I'm storing these in the car and blowing them off and just trying to keep them out of the path, right? So I'll do that again on the other side. I think I will just kind of sand a little on this etch right here. And get that fit, and then proceed on rolling a couple of beads, 2 tree beads in there. I'm still thinking if I want to raise this, but I don't think I'll get it in my, I might. If I can get it in my bead roller, obviously this distance won't fit through it, but if I can get better than half, if I, you know, around to say around there and around there, I can flip the top die and the bottom die and roll it back, you know, finish it upside down. My thoughts. Anyway, so I'm going to keep on this, shut off the camera so I don't have to look like I know what I'm doing while I'm doing it, and then finish those 2 edges and then go from there. All right, so I got a little carried away. I wanted to video the bead rolling this so that you could see what I was doing, but I can explain it. I mean, I used my bead roller, my 3-speed bead roller. It's on low right now. It's got 3 speeds, 1, 2, and 3. It's got reverse. For those of you that haven't seen this, this was just scrap metal laying around. I've had this Harbor Freight bead roller for, probably 20 years. Then when I started getting interested in it, I actually, for those of you that are relatively new to the channel, the reason why I bought that bead roller was to do the floor pan on this 57 Isetta. And so I bought that. I bought that in 1996. That's when I bought that. It would have made 95, 96 because I finished the restoration on this in 1996. But, excuse me, that's when I got that thing. And Harbor Freight was a different company back then. Anyway, there wasn't no Amazon. There wasn't an Amazon. There wasn't anything like that. Anyway, probably within the last 5 years, I welded on this angle iron, and then I was out at the pick and pull, and I saw a snowblower. And you know how slow the augers turn relative to the engine RPM, so I grabbed the transmission from the snowblower. So these 2 shafts ran the auger. This was the drive off that went to a pulley to a motor for initial gear reduction. So I basically am carrying the bearing on that side. This is all just scrap metal lying around. This T was I don't know, sitting on the side of the road. My wife picked it up and thought it'd be a nice grinding stand, but it was only that tall. So I welded a couple of pieces, I think. Yeah, a couple of pieces of angle iron on it, then a piece of C-channel right here that I had laying around, and then some 10 gauge. Anyway, and built this bracket and then mounted this onto that. And the next thing you know, I got it at a comfortable ergonomic height. Grabbed the cross handle for this drill, old 12 volt DeWalt with an adapter to my 20 volt system. And I'm driving that, and then I'm reducing it 5-to-1 again on there. So it's got the 3 speeds, and it's just a 12-inch. I need something more substantial down the road, but thanks for listening to that commercial break. Anyway, I re-welded a piece on here, and over the years things have worn and gotten a little out of control, but it still works. It still does beads. The physics behind it are, if there is a little wear in here, they're actually pretty good. They got a little slop. But, you're just pushing this down into the metal. So if you count your turns, you're going to have the same size bead. And as you know, if you've been watching this series, there's been a significant amount of use of that. In any event, after I finished dressing up the second speaker hole and test fitting and all that, then I came over and I wanted to show you the beads that I I didn't. I jumped right into it, and I wasn't even thinking. I said, oh, shoot, I put the phone in the office. But so basically what I did is I just marked out, you know, this is the theoretical bend line. It's an inch farther in than what I measured. So I did a straight edge on there. It does measure out to the 8 inches that it is in the car. It's like 7 7/8 in the car, but so 8 inches back, and then every 2 inches I put a bead. I shortened this one up by an inch on each side, so it kind of follows the speakers now. So we're looking at the bottom side, and you can see, you know, that's what the bead roller does, right? But I have to break that end as well and bring the strength back into it. So now when you press down, you'll get ready for that brake to put in here. You got a lot of strength in this panel. Now I wanted to raise these. I just wanted to step these with my step dies just around the perimeter, that 1 inch, okay, the width of the die. This is probably like 20 millimeters, you know, something like that. But anyway, I wanted to raise that edge all the way around. I ran one of those dies up to the speaker, and that would have been perfect. It would have captured the mounting bolts and just raised this up a little bit. Now the package tray will have some form of probably a sound deadener, you know, some elevation of underlayment, and then the finished surface, whether it be upholstery or carpet. And so in that event, I could get a rigid mount on the speaker and still have that sound deadener come up to about that elevation, so everything would be a clean, flush look. Plus, I had gained about 1/8 of an inch in height on the speaker. But this all comes back to process, order, and sequence, doesn't it? So for those of you with the keen eye and some experience in the game, know that I'm not going to get this through there. It just ain't going to happen. I thought I could flip the dies and get through there, but as you can see, the dies are more than, you know, if this is 20 millimeters, this is somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 plus whatever the gap is, you know. So nearing that 1.5 inches, 1 3/4, I don't have the space for this to pass through the dies. That's a novice error because I preach process, and I come from manufacturing, 30 some years of manufacturing, and you always get your process down first and sequence and order, because one event affects the other. My theory when bending this was I can get that, okay, I can get that, and what I want to do, but I won't be able to clamp the brake down on this side. Well, I made a mistake. I could have simply just clamped the brake down on that side and bent it up. It'd be pushing on this, but it doesn't matter. I'm just trying to achieve 90 degrees. And in any event, it's bent. I'm not gonna go back after it. This was more of a novelty than a necessity. So I'm just gonna go ahead and leave those as they sit, with this bend in here, and then this carrying on around the corner. There's going to be plenty of structure for the speakers. I just thought, you know, a little icing on the cake would look really cool. But such is life. And I will proceed forward. I apologize for not showing you how I did this, but, you know, I think you can understand the concept is, you know, you start at the center of the die. I just eyeball down here, right? And roll it out. I mean, there's ways you can do it even more precise because these are locked in, right? Because I could make a mark on the wheel so that in every case that mark starts on this mark, and so that they are, you know, so perfectly aligned. I could come back on these like I did on the running boards and coin. You know, what I did on these is I took a washer that was the width of this. I don't remember, 3/8, I think, or something like that, maybe 7/16. And I cut it in half, stacked 2 of them together, and just so I get a distance higher than the bead, and I put a dolly underneath and smashed these down and coined each one of these into a nice radius. those are show, right? I mean, those are judgeable. I stopped at the same point as indicated on all these, and you can see there's just a little bit of pucker under here. It's likely I won't coin them. Now that I said this, I may come back and just at least tap them a little bit just to sharpen the edges. But that's how you clean up the end of that. Get a profile that matches that. Tap it down lightly with a body hammer from the other side, and voila, you've got the edge cleaned up and sharpened. It does offer some stress in this area, so after I'm sitting here talking about it, I'll probably do that just to take a little bit of that stress out. I'm not going for that level of quality, though. I'm just trying to get the stress out of the metal. You can always tell by just running your hand over it. You can feel where it's puckering. So I will continue with that, and in this case, I'll stick this end in the brake, flipped over, and bend this that in that direction so that I have that front edge. But I do have to take a small amount off of this first. Shear a small amount off of it. All right, so I decided to coin them, take the stress out, flatten that edge back out. Got a dolly under there, shim stock over here, and I flipped it over and coined both sides. This is what I used. Like, wow, look at that. It's a lug nut, okay? Turns out it's 7/16-ish. It's, 3/8 to 7/16. So I just chopped it in half. The nice thing about a conical lug nut is you got a nice edge on it to stay close. And you can do a light tap and see it, right? And just tap, tap, tap. Even got a hammering surface on here. Plus it's tall enough I can have my fingers in the way. So cut it about in half. I size it up to my line so that I can keep them all relatively easy and just keep tapping to get them down. And now they're coined. All right, so now you can see the beginnings of the panel. Ribs are down, nice and sturdy. I got 2 screws on the left side of the post there, the right side of the post here, my left, but in the vehicle. I need to remove some material from the 1-inch bar because the speaker's a little bit closer, which is fine. This is a bolt-in arrangement. So I'll get that all dressed out now, and then this bar will be welded to this piece, and there will be trim screws that are more along this line right here. These guys, so they have minimal elevation, so when you put on your 1/4 inch, when you put on your panel and your 1/4 inch foam, they'll hide, you know, they won't pucker out. So stepping back a little, we can see that that package tray is going to work out pretty good. Now I have to finish those out, and that crossbar, so we'll get after that. It's 8 inches deep, and we'll just house a 6x9. Wonder if I got a grill. The grill's sitting here. I'm not going to stick a speaker in right at the moment, but so yeah, see, the grill's just gonna make it. So probably more along the lines of like that, you know, this will be carpeted around, but it'll be about flush with that edge. I'm kind of judging by the consistency and the interior oval. So voila. And then haven't tried this yet. Let's get a surprise going here. Would you look at that? But I did put a gap in here. I can get my finger in it. So when you sit in here, right? So it's gonna work out pretty good. It's gonna work out really good. Love it. We'll keep plugging away. Everything's so close. Okay, so went in and shrunk those around the corners. Just finished kind of sanding off most of the shrink marks. I don't want to thin the material. Then these will go in here, get welded up. I scribed them. You can see the scribe mark right there, where they're going to fit best and look right and end correctly. And so I got both of those done. Now I'll remove this and begin TIG welding those in. And then I'll pull this assembly, mark this, pull the assembly out again, and pull the frame out and start to relieve those out, weld in a piece of, these are 14 gauge tube, weld in a piece of 14 gauge to bridge that, keep the tube strong, weld the tube to that, and then identify my whole locations all the way around for securing. And we should be about to the bitter end. Let's go. I'm going to bring you over here, show you what I got going here now. So the most important thing, is trying to get as tight a gap as possible. Now, when this is shrunk, it's hard to see, but you can see, you know, the edge isn't perfect. And that's you know, a given. And so, but I got a very, very good fit, but I got a little gap there, and I'm pretty flush with the edge there. So now I'm just going to gently work the piece, because if I stick it right on the end there, I'm back. If I stick it right on the end there, you can, okay, look in the radius, I'm back. There we go. So I got to finesse it to fit in there, and then do the same thing on the other side. Very important to just tack, you know, get several tacks all the way down it. Now I trimmed off this end piece, and that's going to be a little gap, a 1/2 inch gap, of course, that width. I'm going to leave that there because this thing all has to go in and be, you know, to make it work, to get it into the opening, because this is the width of the opening. So I'll get that on done on both sides, and we'll come back on you here. Okay, now I've achieved the best fit that I can. There's a small gap here, but the radius fits. I'm not worried about this. That's easy. You know, it's just this bend radius versus this one. But the key here is my panel is dead flush. Okay, so now I can come in, not easily, but I can get the torch in and get tacks in each one of these areas. Once it's tacked in, I got some strength, right? And then I can start to manipulate a little bit, but I just need to get the tacks in them, and then repeat on this side, and then just slowly work it until I get the results that I want. So let's keep on going. Okay, there's round one. Just tacking it up and then moving as I remove clamps all the way around. It's certainly not something to write home about, tell your grandma how well you did or anything like that, but it's very, very, very well penetrated. So, and now I got some wrinkles and some tight things to planish out, and that I have to connect this, I have to terminate this. So all's going well. I'll finish this out, do the same thing on the other side, and I think what I'll probably do is just finish this dollying first, right? Try to get the weld planished and dolly it, because I think this needs to go back, but I don't want to weld that until I get this all flat again. So we'll get after that. All right, cleaned up the welds, got this side in, put it in the car, trimmed it, cut her down to notch it out, spent some time on the back just cleaning it up so it's nice and flat, nothing's in the way, but it turned out really good. The only problem with it is dun 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 dun. But anyway, measured out, it fits nice and snug. So now I'll start on the other side. This, I tend to do this. I want to know which side's going to be harder, and this was going to be harder because I'm right-handed, and TIG welding with your right hand in an area where you got to get in there, especially for tacking, was difficult. But now, obviously, with being right-handed, I can easily do it. I did some left-hand holds and to get it in, and I wound up grinding the tip 3 times during this episode here. Because I'm not left-handed. You don't have that steadiness. I kind of wish it was ambidextrous. But so now I'll move to that side, get it popped in, and then of course everything else in that I've discussed so far. Get the location holes, get it welded to the bar, yada 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 yada. So we'll get after it. Okay, now I've got the crossbar out, and I'm just kind of dressing it out. I threw them away. Took out an eyebrow off of each side. Marked the speakers. You can see the white line right there. Kind of burned from the cutting, but I stayed back about 1/4 of an inch. Made them both the same. Well, they should be the same, I guess. But it gives a little bit of opportunity to, when I get this all welded in, and so I'll have a little bit of clearance, and I'm not going to have any interruption. So I'm welding that one on. Got this one started. Got that one started to get cleaned up. I haven't finished it, but just want to get it all finished up. But one thing I wanted to note, as I went and I got this to a point where now I can get it in there and DA it and clean it up, get it looking pretty. But I had to straighten it. But I'm taking out about half. We're going about halfway down that 1 inch. There's about a 1/2 inch of material left, and cutting it out. And then I'm welding in, of course, that piece. And there is no world where when you weld, it doesn't shrink. Okay, weld takes it to a molten state, and the molecules, as it dries, the molecules come together. And when they come together, it shrinks. It's with any form of welding. That's with not even welding. That's with heating up some material, red hot, taking it to its molten state or near its molten state, then pulling away and letting it cool. It's going to pull together. It's been rolled and flattened and processed into the sheet that it is, and stretched and everything else. And once you apply heat to it, you're taking it back to, it's trying to go back to its state. So that's the beauty of metal. So no matter what, when I finish that, as I did with that, you got to straighten it back out. So that's why I got a level there. Once I finish welding this, grind it, yada yada yada, then I'll take it over here and I'll see a crook. Of course, it's going to pull on the weld. That C is going to get tighter. So then I'll just have to stretch it back out and get it straight again. All right. There's my lesson for the day. Anyway, getting that done, then we'll slap it in, line it up, make sure the speakers fit. I want to get the speaker holes in it too, in the panel, and then pull those out. Then identify all the holes and then come back, and I'm going to probably just MIG this in, just in spots. I don't want it to form the snot out of the front of that piece. So we'll keep plugging away. Okay, there it is. We're welded to this bar, the top, the inside, and the bottom. You can see a little bit of it there. It pulled it in a couple of spots. It's not that big of a deal, I guess, to me. It looks spectacular. I got the holes drilled for the speakers. Speakers fit wonderfully. Got all the screws in. Seat clears just great. So we'll move on. I'm going to call this portion of the project complete. And then now I'll make the fill panel for each side. And then probably some sort of removable panel for the center. I don't know how far over I'm going to go. I want the fill panel to provide access to the back, but I don't know at this point if I want that back to be open because of the battery and that. And this center section may not even be metal. I'm thinking you got to be able to get it out, right? So it can't be super wide. It could be 2 pieces of metal, yeah, I know, and all that. I gotta think that through, but I do know that I want to go in here a distance. So this closes that out and is finished out. So this is the body panel, but then the fender comes over, and the seat belt's got to get mounted down in there. But very happy with it. Thanks for watching, guys. Really appreciate it. Do me a favor and punch the like button. And if you're not subscribed, hit the subscribe button. It helps the channel, right? Because it then appears more often in the on the front page, or in the search. So thanks.